Hey, welcome everyone to the ArchiCAD User Monthly Webinar for January 2024. My name is Eric Bobrow and I'm sitting here in San Rafael, California. And our special guest today is John Hallgarth. You're in Southern California, right?
I am. Hey, Eric. Good to see you.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've worked closely together, but I've been following your work. Let us know that you can hear us and see the screen. And type in where you're calling in from. So always nice to see, who's from the US and who's from UK and Australia sometimes we get. So go ahead and use the questions area. I see Nicole from Berkeley here, jumped on it right away, and Oren from Connecticut. Excellent. And Sharon from New Zealand. All right, so we're now into the Pacific. And Tim Ball from the UK. Hey, Tim, nice to have you on. Tim is a longtime colleague and has taught ArchiCAD through the Masters of ArchiCAD series that I produced. So glad to see you here. Go ahead and keep filling that in. During the presentation, we'll certainly welcome your questions and comments. I will just feed them to John and of course answer some of them myself. So John, let me introduce you a little bit just to give people some perspective, at least from my side, and then you can expand on that. So I became acquainted with you years ago as I saw some of your work with quantity takeoffs, with cost estimation for ArchiCAD, and I know that you worked in the construction sector as a virtual building design manager, and so you were using ArchiCAD and probably a lot of other tools to manage fairly good-sized commercial projects in Southern California, and looked at and figured out and pioneered ways to get ArchiCAD to get quantity data and to manage actual construction. So you and I, discussed sort of the synergies between things, and we created a tool that was on sale for a while. We called it Arc5D, and it's basically a combination of some of your intellectual property or IP and my master template, and created a course on quantity takeoffs for ArchiCAD. So that was pretty active for a couple of years, and then you decided to just take off and start teaching a bunch of ArchiCAD things in different areas, and I'm really pleased to see how well that's taken off. You now have a whole membership program, and you've got a Twinmotion course and a whole lot of stuff that I think will be very valuable to ArchiCAD users around the world, and that's why I wanted to bring you in front of my followers, my tribe, people who tune into ArchiCAD user. So fill in some of the gaps, John, about yourself, your background, and your passion in terms of working with ArchiCAD, and then tell us what we're going to see in the next hour or whatever, however long we have together today.
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks, Eric, for having me back on. It's been yeah, definitely a few years since we've done anything like this together. So yeah, great to be back and presenting with you. And yeah, thanks for the invitation. So for today's presentation, I was going to just talk a little bit about my background, kind of my story with ArchiCAD, and then get into, I picked out 3 kind of demonstration files that we'll get into. So we'll get into a demo on ArchiCAD 27. I have a workflow that I want to just kind of cover, which I thought would be fun, which is a SketchUp to ArchiCAD to Twinmotion workflow, and then another sample project that's pulled up, which is more of like a kind of a core learning objective, which would be kind of tracking through attributes into our design tools and into floor plan display options. So it's there's kind of a lot of different things that we'll try to tie together in just a quick demonstration, something that I pulled from one of our recent training courses that hopefully will be of interest. And then at the end, we do have a special offer. So yeah, just a little bit about my background. Eric, as you mentioned, I'm construction engineering management is what I would graduated with a bachelor's degrees in from Cal State Long Beach. So that's kind of where I started. I worked in the commercial construction industry for about 10 years for one of the biggest contractors in California, kind of going through the field, going into estimating, going ultimately into the virtual design and construction department, where I led efforts for our Los Angeles and Orange County uh, areas. And really back in, I guess, probably 2014, 2015, I started to kind of conceptualize how to take the work that I was already doing with ArchiCAD to support construction projects, whether it was modeling for coordination or modeling for quantity takeoffs, whether it was bringing in design drawings and shop drawings and performing different constructability reviews and coordination type outputs. I started to formulate an idea for how to build an ArchiCAD template that would be better suited for that type of work. And so from there, I really started to explore some new workflows in ArchiCAD, specifically, as you mentioned, on the quantity and estimating side. And I started to build what became the ContraBIM template. So it's really a contractor BIM template. That's where ContraBIM came from. And since 2016, since I first started kind of releasing versions of templates for people to use, it's really kind of my own learning and my own understanding and use of ArchiCAD has really grown a lot as I've learned what other ArchiCAD users are doing with it and what, you know, architects want versus what engineers want versus what contractors want and how they use the software. So yeah, over the last 7-8 years, my use of ArchiCAD and my knowledge of it has definitely grown quite a bit and kind of taken me from that original goal, which was a contractor-based template, into something that does both the construction side as well as handles design well also. So that's a little bit about the history. In 2022, August 2022, I think, I decided to kind of package up all the different templates and training programs I was working on and roll that all into kind of a one-stop membership offer. And yeah, that's what I've been working on really ever since. So just to expand a little bit on that, the membership offer is really all about templates, training programs, and community. So instead of just talking about it, I thought it would be kind of fun just to show you what it looks like. So really it's kind of like a one location stop where you can go in, access all of our training programs, download templates. So we have templates in the US version as well as the international version, and just access a bunch of different training programs that I've recorded and produced over time. And yeah, this is something that just kind of continues to build. So we've done several different types of training, from, you know, library part maker to point clouds to you know, cost estimating and MEP modeling and more. So there's a lot that's kind of packed into this, and it continues to grow over time. One cool thing about this, which is kind of a new feature and something new for me, is just we do live monthly meetups also, just as a, you know, probably similar to this, I know is, you know, something that you offer with the membership. It's now kind of cool because we get to do more face-to-face offers. It's face-to-face meetings, which I enjoy. You get to see people from all around the country and around the world, and usually we have like, I don't know, 15 to 20, so it's a little bit smaller in that group. But yeah, it's just fun to, you know, talk about different training workflows and do that monthly. And yeah, it's just a place to connect, ask questions, and see what other people are working on. So so yeah, that's a bit of an intro here. I don't know if you have any questions or thoughts that came up while I was.
I know you're going to make an offer later on in the presentation. Yeah. So for those of you who are looking at getting more support, better use of ArchiCAD, obviously, you know, if you're here, that's a key part of, you know, just wanting to learn and wanting to stay connected. Then, you know, John's community there will probably be of interest, and, you know, there'll be a special offer later on that will give you, you know, a good deal on it. So right now you're going to be showing us some excerpts from, well, not playing excerpts, but you're going to be demonstrating some lessons that are included as part of larger courses that you thought would be, you know, interesting to do standalone. So let's take a look.
Yeah. So this first one that I'll open up is the latest ArchiCAD 27 templates, and one of the features that I wanted to demonstrate was the use of the new design options. So we'll talk a little bit about the design options and how we're now utilizing that that new functionality as a way of managing what we call working views in the template, which essentially is placed visual favorites that can then be used in place. So so with that, we'll go ahead and kind of jump into our first exercise here, or first demonstration, and really I with this, I plan to cover some, kind of key learning principles that I wanted to get across, but also if there's questions on this as I go through it, then feel free to write those questions in and we can kind of address it. Like to keep this a more, conversational and light, considering something that we were just prepping here over the last few days anyway. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump over to ArchiCAD 27. So, all right, so just to get everyone a little bit acquainted here with what we're looking at, this is just kind of like the base kind of starting point, simple view of our commercial template. And part of our most recent work environment, we've added obviously the new design tools up here and just part of our work environment. So I'm just going to open this up and talk a little bit about how we've set up and structured our design options in ArchiCAD. Now, if you are on ArchiCAD 27 and you've played around with these, then you might have a bit of an understanding of how this works already, but for those who have not used the new design options, I'll try to do a quick overview and then we'll dive a little bit further into it. So with the design options, it kind of works in a similar manner to our graphic overrides, where we have combinations here on the left side of this design option manager. And on the right side, we have our specific design options. We assign our elements to our design options over here. And we can only assign our elements to one design option at a time. So that's kind of an important thing to just kind of note and get out of the way. But what we can do with the combinations is we can have different groupings of options here. And as I kind of expand these and start to click on a few of these down here, you'll see that we can turn off and on different design option sets through these combinations. So for example, like this working architecture here, I have a modeling favorites design option turned on, I have source markers, I have drafting documentation, and I have assemblies for building sections turned on. So what's cool with this is with these combinations, we can have all these different options in their individual groups turned on. And it's a way that I've found is a little bit more I'd say just elegant and user-friendly versus what we were doing in the past, which was storing content using the renovation filters. So I can show you a different file that has that, but I'm finding this is a very useful way of managing content within ArchiCAD. And I know, Eric, just because I'm familiar with your template, I know in the past you probably still do, store some sort of placed visual favorites as a kind of a way to like store your content, make it easy to pick up and then run within your project. So this is probably a little bit different method of managing this than maybe what you're doing now. I'm not sure what your most recent version is set up
Well,
like.
very briefly, the interactive legends of visual favorites, for many years were set up as a hot link that when you turn off the master layer for the hot linked content, or you turn it on or off, so it would appear or not appear on that one layer. Some of the drawbacks were that you couldn't edit it in the project because it was linked to an external file, but that's also an asset because you could update it in the external file and it would update in all Office files that reference that. In recent versions, the last 3 years, I've had it set up with a renovation filter pinned, so only when you're using that particular renovation filter do they show up, and when you're using any other normal renovation filter, then they're not showing. So this means they stay out of the way, they don't show up in 3D views, etc., but they are part of the project and you can edit them, and so it's a little bit more flexible and fluid there, but you have it set up as a design option, so you can turn it on or off with a design option. That's an interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, that I remember the renovation method of managing it. I put out some videos and yeah, I remember you commenting on that being an interesting way. For me it ultimately it worked well, and I still like using some of those that method of the renovations, and certainly version 25 and 26 of my template. But I did find a lot of users had some struggles with the whole pinning and making sure things were unpinned from renovations. And to me, it seems like the design option tool is kind of set up a little bit better for this in some ways. So to kind of demonstrate how this works here, on this particular view, actually, I'm just going to navigate into the template and go to what we call working views. These views are set up to activate specific design options. And so at any point in time here, I can go in and like kind of toggle areas of the kind of place content that I want to either show or not show. So it's a way to quickly turn things off and on. And I was using these working views to activate renovation filters, which I've now kind of simplified back down. But what I like about this is that we can be on any like floor plan working type view. And at any point in time, I can go in and just start checking these boxes and see all the favorites assigned to those. So if we're on like a different, trade, say if we're under some of our engineering views, like our structural framing, and we want to go in and like this is like a layout type view where it doesn't automatically have it turned on, but we can go in and we can just check these eyeballs and be able to pull in all of our framing content. Or if we jump into any of our other working views here, say like plumbing, it'll take us to that preset view that already has all the plumbing stuff pulled up, so you can go in and just either copy and bring things out and relink to the main default, or just kind of toggle it when you need. And depending on what the layer combos are, you can just turn off and on a lot of content all at once and have it filtered by layers, but still be using these design options. So, so yeah, it's becoming, it's definitely evolved a little bit from the previous versions, but yeah, definitely find that it's fun to work with, and it's just I'm finding a little better method of storing content versus before.
I like it. I like it a lot. Let me just interject a couple of explanatory comments. So
Mhm.
when these elements that are off to the side are referenced, they are intended to be prototype elements that you're going to either eyedrop or drag copies of into your project, so that you can very quickly get something that looks like that. It has this wall type, that type of furniture, that type of roof, or whatever it is. Now, when you place it, something new, either drag a copy or eyedrop and draw, it will not automatically be linked to the same control, because it depends upon your setting, but the standard thing in the design options is that you're adding things to the main model, unless you tell it that I'm adding it only to scheme one, or option whatever. So it's great because you can pull these things in. I really like this methodology. I'm going to study it a little bit more, because you can, instead of having all of them off to one side far from the project, you can have it very close by and have different things coming and going. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great work.
Yeah. Yeah, to explain a little bit further, and just to give I guess a quick demo of like how the design option tool works, is you can think about your active tool being the one in this case with the little pen next to it. So whenever you click on one of these, like for example, if I'm going down to this one for my building sections, which is this area right in here, which is obviously turned on because I have it as my active. Whenever you go and add anything, or if you copy anything, or you eyedrop and copy something here to just add a few columns, these will automatically be added to that that design option. So that's one of the cool things about this. There are a few other options down here at the bottom, like this fade environment. So what happens when you click this is it's going to fade out everything else that isn't part of that specific design option, which is a nice visual cue just to kind of show you, okay, what is on this one. I can see something that like jumped out that was a little bit interesting to me here was that this wall section right here was set as part of that building section. So you can relink these things really easily by simply just clicking on another one and then relink, and you'll see that one should have just kind of faded out, and it did. And yeah, that's how you move things kind of back and forth between these different design options. So it's a bit easier than having to unpin with the renovations and then change your renovation filter to the other one and then repin. So it's a little bit quicker through this method. Another
Let me
thing that's really nice.
I know you have a lot to put in, but I want to make sure that, because I have an intuitive sense of some of the things that people won't understand just seeing what are you doing there. Okay, so what is a design option for in Graphisoft's primary use? It's to say we have 3 versions of the kitchen. We want to have different arrangements of the cabinets and interior walls or whatever, and the rest of the building may be constant, but we're going to say, let's look at option A or B or C, and when you click these design options, different groups of elements will show, and every element that's on there that's in a scheme, that's in a design option, only shows on one, but there is the concept of other parts of the building, particularly the main model, that always is showing. So that's what Graphisoft set it up for, is to say you want to show different versions of a design area, and it could be the front facade, it could be the roof, different areas, and you could say we'll do the small kitchen with the front facade with glass, you know, or things like that. They're independent. Now what John is doing is he's adapting that, the tools that they supplied, and said, well, let me use this tool in a different way. And boy, it's very powerful. You know, it's like taking a power saw and saying, oh, I never would have thought you'd use a power saw on this, you know, and it's great. So
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what we did with renovations, but now it's just a little bit enhanced. But yeah, to get back to how Graphisoft intended it to work with the design options, if you may notice, I just kind of quickly sketched out some walls here for an option 1.1, and then you toggle this to the option 1.2. And the way that they've set this up is, and I'm still kind of playing with this to see if it's really like useful to actually use it like this, but they have this accept and merge, which ultimately deletes the other options. So it's not something I've been doing yet, but this can be a way to just assign elements to those different options, and then ultimately kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to use and roll into your main model is really how they've had it, or set it up anyway. So I'm just gonna clear these out. There are a few other things and useful things about this that that I wanted to, or I was going to mention that I didn't quite get to, which maybe let's do this. So going back to this setting here, I'm just going to again like go to my building sections as like my working, or my default design option. And if we turn on the fade environment, you can see that everything else here will fade out. There's also this edit default only, which is a really useful box if you want to go in and just select a certain area of your project that has content associated with this design option. So like, for example, if I didn't have that selected and I wanted to grab like all of this content here, you can see how it's grabbing a lot of the other place favorites. But if you have this activated, then you can go around your entire project essentially, and it's only going to select the content associated with that specific design option. So it can be a nice way to just do focused editing on the that specific one, which I find is really useful for some views like some detailing type views. Let's kind of zoom in here real quick. So I'm going to make, you can see here that we've turned on some content, which looks like I've shifted things around maybe a little bit, but let's kind of, let's make our detailing as our specific, yeah, I can see I recently shifted all of this without having this this set. That's why it's not in line with the background there. So I should have checked that before before I toggled it here, but with this setting, I could place it or bring it into place really easily. This will maybe I can save this part of my demo by fixing it using these tools. So we can select everything that's assigned to this detailing, which you can see, you know, there's probably, I don't know, a few thousand elements, maybe 1,000 elements almost. And we can select them all real quickly. And I believe this was likely supposed to be probably one of these first scenarios here. So still missed it. Maybe as a case, I think this was a casement window. So we can move all these in isolation to the model in the background. And yeah, that seems to be fitting a little better. But yeah, so hopefully that's at least a decent exposure to how this can be used to isolate things so you can select it and then move things separate
So
from
a
the
couple
model
of
behind it.
questions and comments here. So I think this is a good place to at least try to address them. So
Sure.
Ranu Vladimir says design options is very similar to renovation filter with the advantage that you can turn on 2 or more at the same time. The downside for using it in favorites is that you may have unwanted overlays of elements in the favorites area. So that's really just saying you have to be careful, because when you turn on more than one, you know, they can be in the same area. So just it's a matter of setting your plan. This is how I'm going to use it. But good point, and it seems like Tatarano, you're already using it effectively. Rick Pratt, if I have a wall that may or may not have a window, how do the options work when it isn't a window? So I have some answers, but John, go ahead and take it.
Sorry, let me just reread that one. So it was about a wall
That may or may not have a window.
A wall that may or may not have a window, and using the window as an option.
Yeah, so I mean, so what I figured out is the window can be set to be assigned to an option, one of the groups. You know, each one of these groups has, you know, typically 2 or more different options, and the window exists in one of them but doesn't exist in the other. Then the wall is either sitting plain, or if you turn on the option that has the window, it appears. And you could have a small window and a large window, or, you know, different variations there. What you can't do is nested stuff. So what I found is that if you want to have walls with brick base, but then other walls where you're going to have a stone base, okay, those are 2 different variations of the walls. Then you have different versions of the windows. So the windows are inside the walls. You know, you can't say, well, we're going to use the brick walls with this type of window. No, let's try a different type of window. Or then the stone walls. You know, you have to basically create 4, in that case, 2 by 2. You know, let's say you'd have to have 4 different design options. You can't say, well, let's turn on the style of wall that I want, and then separately turn on which windows are there. You know, so there is a limitation. It's not hierarchical. It's one level deep.
And sometimes you will need to have duplicate walls in the same position if you want to show different options relating to those. So there can be cases where certainly there may be some duplication in elements, and so something to consider and keep in mind when managing those different designs.
A couple other questions. So Mackenzie Lifest, who's also been a presenter for us with Tracy Stone Architect. I don't know if you know them. I'm sorry if this was already answered, going a little fast. My mind is racing. If you eyedrop something from one design option to something in the model, does eyedropper process save or paste the design option setting?
We can test that. So I don't believe so, because it's mainly just, let's do this for example. So this wall here is associated with the main model. So that would be kind of our active. If we eyedropper, I think it was this wall that I picked it from. So we pick up those settings, and because this one here, if we select this, you can see that that's assigned to this building sections assembly. If we inject this here, I don't believe it's going to shift which one it's assigned to. So if we select this, yeah, it's still on that main model and not on the one that was injected it from. So having this pen as being the editing design option is kind of the override, I would say, on that one. So
So
hopefully
you're
that makes
changing the
sense.
settings, but not the design option association for the
Yeah,
element.
yeah, it's not transferring the design option between the two.
Now, Rick
So,
Pratt says commercial buildings sometimes have a knockout for a future window. Now, that's an interesting way to do it. You could have one option that has it filled and one option that has it, you know, with a window in where the knockout is. Now, what I found is, imagine that you have a slab and that there's a different configuration for the footprint, or that like it gets bigger, you extend it out. Well, you can have two slabs next to each other. One of them exists in one option and it doesn't exist in the other. So then there's a smaller slab. And one of the new features that I really like, it was introduced in recent years in model view options, is you can say, if you have two slabs that have the same top surface, same elevation, do you want to see a line between them? You know, and they're, you know, touching each other. So you can see lines or eliminate. So those would be, and then if you do the eye next to it, it has a little picture and it's saying, you know, we're going to look to see if the top is at the same elevation with the same surface. I don't care about the structure below. I don't care, you know. So it's a, you know, your choice, and this is something you can change on the fly, or just have a standard that you prefer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, that was pretty much, I think, what I wanted to show here for design options. You know, the kind of the traditional setup of managing, you know, design options and having those flow through, and then,
You're going
you
to
know,
go on to
working
the new
views
topic.
that
There are two more questions here, or two more comments.
oh yeah, okay. Yeah, if there's a few more questions, we can go over those and then
And
jump
then
into the
you can
next
move
thing.
on to the next one. So Sharon Piner says, can the central innovation tools such as wall or roof coverings and windows and doors be used with the design options within the same wall?
So I'm a little bit familiar with those tools, but I don't use them myself. But I believe anytime you're adding those tools, they come through as objects. And any object, pretty much one of the nice things with design options is you can assign literally anything to it, whether it's a marker, whether it's an image. Those two things you could not assign to renovation filters, but with the design options you can. So it's very, very powerful in being able to assign all sorts of different types of 2D and viewpoint and 3D content to it. So yeah, if it's an object, then yeah, absolutely you can assign them.
So one way to think about it, Sharon, is if you have a wall with a type of cladding that they put in, and you had another wall with a similar cladding, but it was a different configuration, you know, shorter, longer, taller, or whatever, you could show one or you could show the other. And these design options allow you to have, you know, essentially pick one, because we're going to have this design scheme here or not. But the cladding is attached to the one element, you know, whichever one is visible, or maybe both are visible if they're not using design options. So I don't think, it's not like the cladding is a single thing. It's a cladding associated with the wall, just like a window is associated with a wall. And if you were to drag the wall, the window goes with it. So that may make it clear. Now, Francois, your colleague here, I know you work with Francois for some of the training, right?
Yeah, we did the anatomy of ArchiCAD course, and yeah, I saw his comment. I was trying to get ahead of it a little bit here. Yeah, I
I'm going
don't
to make
think there is
Francois,
a,
I'm going to invite him as a panelist so he can at least say hello. You can
oh, sure.
continue with the presentation, but I'll just add him if he wants to say hello.
Sure. Yeah, his question was about transferring the element transfer settings, and yeah, there is no design option as part of these transfer settings, so it's yeah probably a good thing. But honestly, it's so easy to, like, if you wanted to transfer the design option status of, say, this wall again to this wall, it's easier to just select the wall and then just like click on whatever you want to assign it to versus having to pick up the settings and then inject them. So it's shorter just using this panel. That's why I often have it docked, because it is becoming one of those things that's I'm referencing a lot. So
Mhm.
um
So I asked Francois if he wants to unmute or put on his camera. We'll see if he's up for it. Okay. Alexander says, what Slack channel? I know it's been asked 10,000 times. So for those of you who are in my ArchiCAD coaching program call, we do have a Slack workspace for discussion, and you can just put those comments into the coaching calls channel in the ArchiCAD training Slack. And I haven't even been looking at it, so it's possible that some of you have been commenting there. So I see Steve Nickel on the call and Ken signing in. Yeah, just a couple of people saying that they were signing in. Anyway, do go on to our next section.
Cool. So the next sample file that I have pulled up is our sample project that we used for our recent Twinmotion Mastery course. And as part of the course, we recorded a few kind of bonus sections that captured the process of converting a SketchUp concept design into a documented format inside of ArchiCAD. And so that's really one of the workflows that I wanted to kind of feature and demonstrate on today's webinar, just because I think it has a lot of, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it can be difficult to work with SketchUp files inside of ArchiCAD. And so I wanted to present just a few kind of tips and tricks for how to make that a little bit easier to document and then to ultimately set up your project for modeling. So I did try to pull up the sample project from the Twinmotion course to show on my computer here, but I actually use my other computer for that, which has a little better graphic card. So I don't think we'll get into Twinmotion today just because it wasn't handling very well. So, but we'll get into this ArchiCAD file and talk a little bit about that workflow. So, okay, so this again is a project, another one that was kind of built from the ContraBIM template as its base, but what we referenced here, what we utilized was a SketchUp model. What we were just looking at was the ArchiCAD version. This is the SketchUp version. And so part of the training program was just to kind of demonstrate how to take a SketchUp model, which in itself comes in as one single object. You can see the entire project site is highlighted except for the grid lines, which are still being shown there. And the problem or the challenge of working with SketchUp files inside of ArchiCAD is the fact that you can't really get inside of the object to see what the floor plans are. In a story type view. So we've developed a workflow that helps with this. And under the template here, we have design references and we have a specific folder set up for SketchUp. And so here we're just going to activate this SketchUp import view, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing here, which obviously this is the view that we've set up specifically for importing the object. And we have a few steps here just for kind of what to, you know, how to follow through this. But really the process is, you know, importing an object. And then we used to actually take the object, and we'll kind of, let me demonstrate the old method here first before showing the new and improved method. But the old method, or the previous way that I would go about creating a floor plan of this particular SketchUp file, just to see where the walls are, to see where the windows were and everything else, is I would go in and I would start using the cut planes and go through, you know, kind of section it off, go to a parallel or axo type view, which in this case, feeling a little bit lost here. Let's go back to our perspective. Sometimes I've noticed this happen, and let's see. I'm gonna toggle this off. Yeah, that's weird. Make sure that my cut fill or my stories are fully there. Yeah, I've noticed this before. I don't know if you've run into this also. Go to a view. There we go. We can at least get the side of it there. I've noticed that sometimes it struggles or defaults to a view that doesn't have things turned on, which has been a little annoying. But anyway, in order to generate a 2D version of this top view, which I had activated just by clicking on this look perpendicular to and then clicked on the main surface. From here, I would then save off a 3D document of this particular view. So we would go in, we'd go to our 3D documents or click outside of our crop zone, but we have our 3D documents here, and we would go do a new 3D document from the 3D, noting specifically where our cut planes are. And you can go through, you can set these at specific heights and all of that. But yeah, it was just a few extra steps here to go and to actually generate a new 3D document. So we'll just create this real quick just to demonstrate. And we'll just call this level 1 with some X's there so we can see. So yeah, that's how we would go through and we would generate this. And then from here, if we wanted to switch this to line work, we would add a worksheet onto it. And then from this worksheet, we can open with these view settings. This just created a new worksheet for that temp 3. And then now this would ultimately turn into line work. And if we wanted to simplify any of this, we could zoom in and we can see that because it was a projection, there's a lot of like little lines and stuff over there on the edge. From this view, we could go through and just start kind of stripping things down for the performance of things. So we can delete out all the fills, and we'd have to go in and selectively kind of clear out some of these lines if we wanted to clean up the floor plan for use and reference. So that was the previous method of kind of working from our 3D view to a 3D document, saving off a worksheet to ultimately use as a reference for rebuilding the project within ArchiCAD. The new method is a little bit simpler than that, because from our SketchUp import view, we can actually, if you right click, we can do a new 3D document from our floor plan. And so this is kind of a workflow that we're just going to create a new one here. We're just going to call this 3D document floor plan, or FP for floor plan. So we'll just create a new one. And when you create a 3D document from your floor plan, you get these new options here under our 3D document settings. So if we go into our 3D document settings, and you can see that there's a floor plan projection. With this, you can then start going through and you can set up your cut plane heights, and it kind of cuts out those steps that I just demonstrated of having to create a 3D view and then use your cut planes to kind of segment off the model, and then from there work with that 3D document and deal with the updating that way. This way I find is a bit more user-friendly, and you can do different types of views from this, whether it's a floor plan or even a reflected ceiling plan. And I find this is a really useful way of going in and documenting SketchUp models by means of setting your cut plane height. So we'll just set this to like 4 feet, and we can show it down to our source story, or you can even show it down to stories below. So there's some cool things with this. Going from this 3D document, let's just, for example, show, like, say we wanted to see down to 1 story below, and we set an offset down. I think I can never remember if it's a positive or a negative direction here, but let's go down like -4 feet, I want to say, and just for the purpose of trying to pick up the walls from down below. So let's turn that on, and I may have to go turn on my hidden lines. Let's see. So it's generating. So yeah, it did pick up content down below, but I needed to toggle those hidden edges, and then we can of course give it some sort of override here. So we'll just go kind of like, well, we'll make it something that's very different. We'll go like a dash green. So we click that, and we should see some hidden lines of everything down below. So using the 3D document in a 2D type view can be pretty powerful for just kind of capturing some of those spaces in between stories. And say like if you're doing plumbing plans and you want to pick up the plumbing that's modeled on the story down below, but in the overhead ceiling space, you can use the 3D document tool as a way for doing this and seeing multiple stories at once. So yeah, that was one of the main kind of, or the big lesson that I wanted to present here, was just the process of setting this up, it's really easy to do. From any view of your project, you can do this, whether it's, of a single object, like what we've been looking at here using the SketchUp file, or you can do this obviously with your own ArchiCAD modeled content as well. But yeah, from here, it's then very easy. You go through and you can start working with these 3D documents, pulling your dimension strings, going through, looking at elevations and pulling, obviously the elevations and sections, those are projected views of the model. So they automatically produce all the line work that we need. So not as tough of a workflow utilizing the SketchUp model for sections and elevations, but with the floor plans, using that 3D document in the 2D viewpoint, I find is, really useful. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. I don't see any
No
just
one's
yet,
typed
but
in anything. So you brought in the SketchUp file. You just said did you just drag in the SKP into the working view? And then it shows up, whether it's a full building or just a piece of furniture, it'll show up on in the model space. So in this case, we're talking about a whole model. So I'm just talking through it myself, so I get it, and maybe other people will find it beneficial. So now we have something that looks in 3D like, a building that's been modeled in SketchUp, so it has a certain level of detail. And you're saying we want to be able to recreate this with ArchiCAD native elements so that you can get full working drawings. So you're essentially you're creating a 3D document that's looking down on the plan with settings for where you're cutting. And so you're not actually having to do cutting planes, you're just telling it how you want it cut. So that is conceptually quite a bit simpler. Just do this for me, as opposed to me having to drag it up or down, or and do that. Okay. And then now this is a 3D document that is linked to the SketchUp model. Now you can't actually drag the SketchUp walls around because they're unless you turn them into a morph or something like that, and then that probably is more headache than it's worth. So you're now using that as a trace reference for drawing walls?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So in this workflow, generally you bring in the SketchUp object. Usually the steps I go through are, number one, like rotate to make sure that the object is in your XY plane. I'll then look at the project from like 2 different sections and then align the exterior walls to the grid line structure that I want to use. And then you go in, you adjust the Z elevation to make sure that your finished floors are sitting right, because for whatever reason with SketchUp objects, like it doesn't always come in like, it rarely, or I should say it never comes in exactly how I want it to be sitting within ArchiCAD. So there's always a process of moving things around a little bit. But yeah, once you've got it in place in terms of X, Y, and Z coordinates, cut out some floor plans to reference, and then from any of the working views in the project. So like, say for example, my working view for my floor plan here, I would be working on this and referencing either the, where is it? Directly to our SketchUp floor plans here. So we can turn this on as a trace reference to be able to see our reference there. Or at other times, I may still take it out to a worksheet, use that to kind of lighten up the load a little bit, and then trace and reference from a worksheet can also be a way that because sometimes while working in ArchiCAD, if you have your trace and reference turned on to 2 different views, it can slow things down a little bit on the performance side. So to bypass that, if you add a worksheet and bring that content over to a worksheet, explode it into line work and fills, simplify it if you need to by cutting out any sort of the projected high polygon like object type views you may get if you have furniture or plants or some of those other types of objects that may be in the model. You can lighten it up a lot, and then you can even reassign all that stuff to just the ArchiCAD layer, the line work, so that you can trace and reference to the project map. Because anytime you trace and reference to the project map, it's always performance-wise going to be much better, much faster than tracing and referencing through the view map. So
let me just give clarity for that. So, and I've experienced this over many years. Yeah, when you're doing trace and reference, you're showing a second view in conjunction to the existing one. And ArchiCAD is having to just calculate that. Now, John, you've just given two different ways to simplify it. One is taking something that is a live 3D view and just making a copy of it in a worksheet, so it's just 2D, it's just lines. So now it's much easier for it to throw the lines as a background, as a trace. Now, in addition, you talked about taking the lines and putting them on the ArchiCAD layer. Why? Because with the ArchiCAD layer, anything that's on there doesn't disappear. It's always turned on. And when you are doing the ghost image, the trace and reference with a view, ArchiCAD has to think, well, which layers should I turn on and off? And if it's different than your current view, then it has extra bookkeeping to do because it's turning on and off layers in two different views, trying to keep it in sync. But when you do it from the project map, it basically uses the same layers as your frontmost view. It doesn't have to think about that. And to make sure that it's just visible, put it on the ArchiCAD layer so the stuff just doesn't disappear. It isn't dependent upon whether you have certain layers on. So I love the way you have organized, or you've codified that as, you know, this is a way to speed things up. But I wanted to make sure people understood, you know, what it was.
Yeah, and it's not just, you were talking about layers as something that it would have to calculate. It's not just layers, it's also the scale, the structure display, pen sets, model view options, graphic overrides, renovations, design options now. Like it has to process all of these when we have a saved view versus the project map. So it's yeah, a lot of different settings here to go through.
Steve Nickel, what's the advantage of developing a SketchUp model and bringing it into ArchiCAD versus developing an ArchiCAD model from the start?
Well, just often I'll receive a SketchUp model. Like I have different clients who still prefer to do their concept work in SketchUp. And so often we'll be bringing those SketchUp models in and rebuilding it, detailing things out more accurately in ArchiCAD. So if it was me, I would always start in ArchiCAD, but it's not always just me. So when other people want to work in SketchUp, they can do so. And ultimately you can bring in SketchUp objects and do different versions of them. And you know, we've been talking about design options earlier. Like you can use the same tools for storing design options of SketchUp models as well. So yeah.
Okay. So Francois is, I made him a panelist so he can appear. Wanted to say hello to Francois.
Hello, Eric. Hello, John. Thanks for opening the mic.
Yeah, do you have a webcam that you can turn on?
Not on the PC, no, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So Francois is down, are you in South Africa?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I know you've worked together with John on some training materials. Tell us a little bit about what specifically you have contributed to the ContraBIM course curriculum.
John and I've met and started working on and discussing everything about ArchiCAD templates in 2018. When we started this, setting up this course, the Anatomy of ArchiCAD course is actually my training methodology. And it's on the premise that if you understand ArchiCAD, you don't need to learn ArchiCAD. And what we are building out is a library covering a quite detailed cover of ArchiCAD. We are breaking it up in, with John's help, breaking it up in these short bursts of videos that are focused, but throughout all the course, we are connecting the dots so that users understand if you do something here on the layers or on the renovation filter, what is happening on the other side, without having to fight with ArchiCAD. If you understand how these attributes influence your output, you'll understand why you're not getting the background color on your walls that you are looking for, and so on. So in the end of the day, you've got full control of your ArchiCAD because you understand how it operates and you align with how it's designed to work.
Okay. Well, it's great to have you on the call, and I know you've been working closely and sharing your deep knowledge of ArchiCAD, you know, through the ContraBIM environment or memberships. That's great. Do you have any insights, anything related to what we were just presenting that you want to add?
Yeah, not in particular what was presented, but I feel I need to add, and one would like to add that I've never done recorded videos. I've been training for the last 15 years, and always something I wanted to do, knew that I had to do, and with John's help, he got me into recording videos for trainings, and graciously offered that we could put it on his platform. So it was an immense help, and opened up a lot of things for me on that side of things.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure producing and recording this thing with Francois. It's a big lift what we've been trying to accomplish with this course. It really does dive very deep into all sorts of different work, you know, really covering the workflows, covering the attributes, and as Francois said, you know, creating those interconnections and linking everything up so that users can really understand how ArchiCAD is set up and built to function. So with that, it really does bring me to kind of the third sample file that I was planning on discussing here, which is just a quick excerpt from the course itself, the Anatomy of ArchiCAD course. And in this section of the training, Francois actually went through and covered all of the different attribute types in detail. And during this part of the training, on my side of it, I was continuing the conversation by presenting different design tools and tracking through where those attributes show up in those design tools and how they look through different floor plan display settings and kind of the interconnections between those attributes and lines and pens and everything else. So that's what we have set up here, which is, again, it's just kind of a quick excerpt. We did this for pretty much all the tools, and I thought it would, as a way to demonstrate really the different kind of rigs that we've set up here. Let me just kind of do a marquee around this, and maybe we'll just kind of pick off one section of it and highlight how this is coming through. So the whole purpose of this was to set up kind of a grid or a matrix of different types of walls in this particular case, some that were modeled only a few feet tall, so being 3 feet here, which at least in the US version, our traditional or our typical cut plane, our standard cut plane, if we go into our view settings, is set at 4 feet, is generally where this is set by default. And because these are below the cut plane, it allows us the opportunity to kind of look at different floor plan display settings that we can assign to it. This row here is obviously through our cut plane. So these are essentially full height walls. In this case, 10-foot walls. These walls being above the cut plane, so they start at 6 feet, which obviously is above the cut. And then these are multi-story walls. So we've set up this grid for the purpose of demonstrating how these different walls will be projected with these different settings. Because if we select any type of wall here and we go into our floor plan and section, we can see that we have these different options for showing on our home story versus all relevant, showing a symbolic cut, which we can see as in this case, I just happened to grab one that was below our cut plane, but one that we still wanted to see that symbolic cut turned on, as noted over here. And just using this as an example to demonstrate how your different attributes are going to be displayed based on these different settings. And there's always times when we can override things and we can adjust things. And so when trying to get your model views in ArchiCAD to really look right, especially in the case where you may have walls that are modeled either above or below or in unique situations and not the typical full height wall, it's useful to know these different settings for being able to control the visibility and how things look. So we've set up these different rigs here. You can see if I go up a story to this level 2, you can see which ones are showing through from our multiple story options. Obviously the all relevant is coming through here. And yeah, we've in the training itself, we went through pretty much each one of these different kind of grids. We've done them for slabs to show different settings here at different elevations, whether it's below the story, below the cut plane, through the cut plane, above, and the story of above. So we've done that for, you know, roofs to see different projections of those shells and pretty much all the different tools. So something I've wanted to do for a long time was to set this type of rig up to go through and explore all these different options. And yeah, this was just one of those parts of the anatomy course that kind of was perfectly suited for demonstrating how the attributes all tie together. So for each one of these different views, we had gone through and talked about our different source view settings. So if we jump to this section here, we had kind of tracked through the settings from our materials. So say, for example, if we grab this particular wall, which is a composite, we select it, we go to our building materials, and from our material list here, which we're just going to kind of switch over to not our folder view, but this list view so that we can see the highlighted ones. We can see what's been selected. And so at any point in time, we can go into any of these, and if we wanted to change the settings of these cut fills that we see, we can go through and adjust these. So so this is the type of stuff that we tried to, you know, create those interconnections inside the training course of just going through, making adjustments here, and then seeing how those adjustments are going to come through, whether it's in a cut plan type view. So we can see how we've, with 2 quick little settings, we've changed all these walls and all the cut fills. If we go back to our first story, we're going to see that trickle through here. If we go to our uncut, which is a little, instead of building materials, it's a little bit more of a discussion about surfaces. So again, we've gone through and kind of tracked this through to go in to see where this is coming from with our surfaces. So we go to our masonry, we can see our masonry non-structural. We can see on this particular view that we have a surface color. And so, you know, we can lighten this up and adjust that background color. We can change our pen color here if we wanted it just to be kind of like a, I don't know, a little bit tighter black pen, we could set that there. And just by making these few quick little changes to attributes, you know, you can see how things are being quickly adjusted here on these different viewpoints. So a lot of what we talked about, we kind of really took our time and tried to explore all of these to the point where we could relate all of these attributes back to the model views, checking out the model view settings themselves. So going into our section settings and talking about, you know, what these cut elements are going to look like, what these cut elements are going to look like, what these different options are going to do for us. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So, so yeah, that was really kind of the last thing that I wanted to just, you know, talk through. And if there's questions on anything relating to like model view or attributes or modeling techniques, this is a file that has a lot of different design tools kind of set up and ready to go. So we can take a look at any of those here. And yeah,
Okay. There's a question from Alexander English, who I believe is from Australia. Does the ContraBIM international template utilize standard pen sets or custom? I can see now that you're using the Graphisoft North America set, which doesn't apply to international standards. So what, you have an international version of your template, which uses standard pens?
I do. And with the international pens are the same as the US version pens as in terms of how the template is used, which with the international, I mean, the international default template has its own rules and pen sets, you know, where things are set up a bit more in columns. But for the sake of consistency between the US and the international ContraBIM template, I've set it up with the same pen sets because most of the pens in the template are dedicated to specific pens. So where we have, you know, the first 1 through 20 are very much you know, in line with how the US is set up, but beyond that, we have dedicated pens for different sections of the template, dedicated pens for renovations, specifics, whether it's equipment, you know, flashing, plumbing, lights, furnishings. With our composites, we've set it up where we have specific pens with our composites dedicated for concrete structures versus masonry versus metal framing versus wood framing and exterior and interior contours. So a lot of the stuff is already kind of mapped through to these dedicated pens so that it makes it easier to ultimately work with. We have pens that are set up for MEPs specifically. I can show a little bit of this here just by, let's just kind of go in. Well, let's first kind of start with some of those. We'll turn on our line weights here so it's a little bit more intense, but like for example here, like we're seeing metal framing. We can track this back through to this metal framing contour, and you know, just by quickly changing these two values with these two pens, it's going to adjust all these walls that have those assigned. So everything in the template is pretty much assigned to its own dedicated pen, so that if you want to make changes, you can make them very quickly there. One thing that's pretty useful with the template is for MEPs. So let's just go to like a plumbing working view here. And like one of the downsides of the default MEP tools is the fact that it always displays the whole MEP, or sorry, the entire system. So like for, you know, pipe in this case. But by having these all mapped to a specific pen, we can actually enable this to be like single line display of MEP systems. So by having a pen set that's dedicated for this, we can manage those types of things, which will actually produce those outputs for us. So yeah, you know, I definitely weighed the pros and cons of, you know, not setting up a specific one that was more built on the international pen set rules, and ultimately you know, it's easier for me to keep things in line in my own brain by having the same pen sets and not switching them over. So Eric, on your template, do you have a specific international versus US pen? I can't remember.
Yeah, my approach has been that aside from layers and the view map, that I use all the standard US attributes in the US version of the template and the international attributes in the international one. So there's in theory less learning curve because, you know, people are switching from a standard one and they don't have to think about the pens any differently. And if you were to copy and paste stuff, you know, it would come in. Layers, you know, I believe the layer naming conventions were a little bit, well, certainly when I started the template, there was a lot of legacy stuff based on the wall, INT, you know, just the National CAD standards limited layer naming length. And so by creating longer names that were more explanatory, it became more intuitive. So layers I do independent of the Graphisoft ones, but I do maintain all of their, the other thing is that whenever there's a new version of ArchiCAD, I'll bring in all of the standard, their composites, their building materials, all of those attributes. So I make sure that this stays current. But I do see the benefit of having thought through the pen set in a different way, and you have, you know, a very clear system of how you're using the pens that probably goes deeper than what anyone at Graphisoft has ever done. So, you know, so once one buys into that and says, all right, well, this really is giving me the results I want, then, you know, there's no reason to stick with the international pen set, you know, for example.
Yeah, yeah. I think once you start assigning things to their specific pens, then it, you know, that's kind of the rule, and you stick to it. And if instead of having to go through the template and change all sorts of different settings, you just change the pen and
There is
update.
a question that Alexander asked about library components. So that is a classic thing. In other words, let's say in the US version, the door swings are pen 6, which is a light blue line and very thin. And of course, if you made pen 6 a heavy line or something like that, then the doors would look bad unless you went into every door you placed and every favorite, etc., to modify it. So I assume you've gone through and made sure that at least the objects, the defaults that they use in the objects, which are only about half a dozen pens, that they map to a reasonable value.
Yeah, yeah. Most of them are in the first row, so 1 through 20. So I've left those for that reason. With the international libraries, we've you know, kind of pulled some things off what the default pens may be. But we do have all those stuff in place, visual favorites. So those pens are kind of pre-set up and ready to go for the most part. So, yeah.
Okay, the issue that I found, and maybe it's not an issue in terms of the way you're using it, is you eyedrop one type of furniture, one type of you know, fixture, one type of element, and then you switch to a related type, then you know you're going to be picking up the default settings from the library. So you can't have everything in the world in a visual favorite. You can only have representative elements. So that's why having the pen set at least compatible, if not necessarily the same, but at least compatible, seems to simplify it. So I assume you've worked it through and that's a non-issue. Tatarano asks, what do you think about the updated MEP tool? In the new tool, you can set the floor plan display only to home story or all relevant. I have problems with underground pipes not having the option to display on one floor above.
Yeah, so the new MEP tools, it's a good question for what I have showing on the screen right now. I did leave, at least in the current version, the old tools, which are now unfortunately all switched over to objects. There's definitely some downsides to the new tools. One being there is no scheduling of any new MEP tool at all. Like you can't schedule any of this, not even the equipment, which hopefully they're going to fix here very soon. But just in terms of like being able to work with these things, I think the routing has become a little bit easier because literally you can just like, you know, start and like continue with stuff, and it's very easy to go up and down, and like the routing is certainly faster and easier if you're doing simplified modeling. But the fittings, before we had a lot of fittings that were kind of just set up and ready to go and easy to just drop into place and add the connections where you need. Now the fittings are a total nightmare to work with. And so, yeah, hopefully that's something that will be improved in the future. But yeah, if you're doing piping systems and you want to get the right fittings, it's not going to be fun. So that's why I've left in some cases the old objects, just because they are at times easier to even work with and they're schedulable. So it's kind of like we're kind of in this weird timing between version 26 and like 27 has now been released, and the 27 MEP tools are not really up to par for like being able to produce, you know, detailed modeling if you want quantity takeoffs and material listings. But the version 26 stuff, it didn't always have the perfect types of connections anyway. So it's hopefully the tools will get better. I think Graphisoft has some plans for where the tools are going to go. But for the basic user who just wants to have routing without caring about the fittings, the tools are probably better now. So or at least easier to use.
But those view controls, like he was talking about, saying it's either on one story or it's on relevant stories, and relevant by definition doesn't include the story above. Now I do have a workaround for that. You can, so here I think it will work because I actually tested it on something similar conceptually. You say this pipe, which is underground, showing all relevant stories. Now, when you have your, let's say ground floor, and you want to see it below, you make sure that you change your cutting plane settings to make it relevant to go down to however far down it has to go. So if you go down to in view setting to cutting plane, you can take this down all the way down anywhere you need to. So now all of a sudden in this view, those pipes are relevant. They are considered relevant to this story because you're telling it to just analyze the model down further. Now you have to be careful because this would also take walls that are that are set for relevant stories that are just down below. They will start to appear because you're including that. So you will have to do some stuff with layers and make sure that walls that are set for relevant stories are not on a different layer, so there'll be some management, but that way you can actually get those pipes to show on what would be the story above because they're relevant to the story.
Yep. Yeah, that's absolutely a way to have a show on multiple views, but all in the view settings. So,
So let's see. Giraffe says, is the anatomy of ArchiCAD offered in a solo base or through an annual membership?
Both. So yeah, I'll pull up here in just a few minutes the offers we have, but yeah, you can buy through a standalone, which we have two options to sign up for that standalone, or it is included as part of the membership. So if you sign up for membership, you get that as well as all the other training courses and templates.
All right, so Mark Hess. Hi, Mark. In reference to routing, if you try to reconnect a pipe Y or such like, it creates more segments, and I've not been able to delete portions of the route as I could before. Yeah, from what I've read on forums, the tools are not complete in 27. And so there's this, I'll just expand a little bit further on what John said. If you're doing a serious big project, and I know, Mark, you do hospitals, and you've been doing stuff before, don't go to 27 because the stuff that was already modeled will become objects, so it will no longer be the same thing, and B, you just can't do certain things. So that, unfortunately, but maybe next month, soon enough they'll have version 2 of 27 or whatever version it is. So yeah, it is. I've seen people say, God, I don't want to wait to upgrade to 27, but I can't get my work, so it's a bit of a mess. Tim Ball says, thanks, John and Eric. Love the systems approach. Many of John's ideas translate to other areas, so it makes me think creatively about other approaches. Now I'm going to invite you, Tim, to just open up your mic in case there's anything else you want to add.
I think he left. I think he had to jump off.
We posted it at 2:16. Let's see. Okay, he might have
just said Tim Ball has left. But,
okay. All right, left the building. And Mark Hess says, thanks for the information. Okay. Yep. All right. So show us your offers. What do you got for sale?
Yeah. So I'll just kind of flash this and we'll jump to it. So yeah, if you go to the website, ContraBIM.com, there's a /specials, and yeah, let me just pull this up here. I guess I should just go do it myself. So /specials. Okay, so yeah, right now we're running a few specials. So if you go to this link, these will be up here. I'll leave these up and active for at least a few weeks, probably till the end of February, just so everyone has enough time and once this is posted. So right now the current offer for membership is $480 a year, but for a limited time you can sign up for $360 a year, so save $120. And we also just started a new option to sign up for quarterly payments, just to break it down a little bit more. So you can get access for only $90 to start. So every 3 months you'll be billed the $90 to pay for the annual membership. So that would be our, oh, sorry, I'm jumping around here. That would be the first offer. The second offer is on one of our standalone courses, which is the Twin Motion Mastery course. You can get that for It's regularly priced $299. You can get it for $199 right now. And just to kind of show you some of the content that's in that one right now, I'm going to jump back to our membership site. We're just going to jump into the Twinmotion course. And just to kind of give you a quick overview of what's in it, this is all on-demand learning. This was a course that I did in collaboration with Serdar Bobrow, who's runs the SB Architect YouTube channel. He does some really awesome videos both on ArchiCAD as well as Twinmotion. He's really the expert on Twinmotion. He's been using it for a long time, and so he put together this course, and it really dives into everything you need to know about setting up your scene, creating good composition, and yeah, it was a really fun course to do with him. And yeah, it's broken up into 4 modules where you can go through, learn all about importing models, direct links to ArchiCAD, all about materials, lighting, vegetation, all about the different rendering settings. So there's just a lot going on in these videos, and most of them are pretty short, so they're easy to consume. We have closed captions for all of this as well. So if English is your second language, you can watch all of it. So yeah, that is the Twinmotion course. So just wanted to note that you can get that for only $199, or we've also broken that up into 4 monthly payments. So if you want the standalone course, you can get that for just under $50 to start. And then we've done the same thing with the anatomy course. So you can sign up for only $199 right now for that anatomy course, so save $100 on that, or you can join through the 4-month payment option. And yeah, there's a lot going on in that anatomy course. We have more modules that we are recording and producing as well, so there's still quite a bit to go in terms of finishing that out. But this course will ultimately end up probably in the 150 video range, with each module containing between 20 and 30 videos. So yeah, there's a lot going on in that one.
That's all part of your membership or can be purchased individually?
Yeah, so if you sign up for the membership, you get pretty much everything. So
including the templates. Do you have the templates on sale, or what's the normal cost of the templates?
Yeah, so the templates are included as part of the membership. It's really the core offering of the membership is access to all the templates, and then yeah, from there you get a lot of bonus stuff. So you check out
then you're not selling the templates separately anymore?
No, nope. Yeah, templates. I mean, if you sign up for a year, we used to sell the templates for much more than what we're even charging the membership for. So trying to bring down the price to help out more people, and also just packing, kind of snowballing value over time. So the membership now includes a Twinmotion course. It's got the anatomy course. It's got several versions of the templates. It's got all these other training series. It's got like the C5D systems estimating tool. It's got Excel loader tool. It's got the MEP modeling course. So yeah, pretty much rolling all the stuff that I've been producing into these into the tool. The one thing that I did leave out, just because it was our collaboration, was the ARC 5D stuff. So that's still available, still up there, the quantity and cost estimating course in the collaborative templates we did, but it's a little bit dated now because I think we did it for version 22, I want to say, of ArchiCAD. So it's a little bit older at this point, but
may want to, you and I should just talk and see if it makes sense to just throw it in there for people if you feel that it would add there. Question, just going back to one of the technical things. So you did your SketchUp import and the 3D document thing. If you had a point cloud, I saw point clouds on there, it made me think, if you have a point cloud import, from Matterport or any other source, I'm guessing that you could do the same sort of thing, create a 3D document from the point cloud.
No, unfortunately. ArchiCAD still lacks the ability to document points, meaning even if you have a view with the point cloud turned on and you put that view as a drawing onto a layout, you're not going to see any of those points. The only way you can translate points to a layout will be through an image type format, which will pixelize things, but a 3D document will not do points, unfortunately. But
so you can do a cutting plane. You can do a cutting plane, and you can turn your view to be black and white sort of thing, but it'll still be just a bunch of dots, and you'd say it's an image. Okay. All right.
yeah,
So
yeah. So to slice up a point cloud in ArchiCAD, generally you'll use your view settings and your floor plan cut plane. And usually I'll just set this so that I only am picking up like a few feet at a time. And I'll set this like for a floor plan, probably do it around like maybe like 1 foot or 2 feet to 4 feet, or 2 feet to 6 feet is a good range. That way you get all the clean walls, you don't get all the junk on the floor, and you just get a nice clean line representation of, your walls, maybe casework, openings. If you want to do reflected ceiling plans, you pick up a range that's like, call it 8 or 7 feet up to 9 feet, something like that, to pick up your ceilings and your lighting. So yeah, using the floor plan cut planes is the way to go for sectioning off point clouds. The 3D document tool will unfortunately not work for us.
okay. All right. Let's see if there's any other questions here. So Tatarano, let's open up his line, because it's got a lot of great questions here and comments. So see if Tatarano is able to. Hey, Tatarano.
Hello, hello.
Hi. So you had some questions about stable diffusion, Excel, and point cloud. You can use BIM tool, BIMM tool, I think is the name. You can print the point.
I think that is the name. It's a plugin for ArchiCAD, and you can also print the point clouds on the sheets if you need. And you also can make some processing, some optimizations of the point cloud.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I may have seen a demo of that recently, just in the past week, perhaps. Is that the one where you can also crop the point clouds in the 3D view? Yeah, I did see a demo of that. So yeah, I think there are a few different point cloud add-ons that can enhance some functionality beyond what's offered out of the box. But yeah, good to know. I didn't know that one particularly could place it as a drawing.
Now, just to expand a little bit on point clouds, because before they seemed to be very exotic, and only professionals could create point clouds, and only with fancy instruments. And now you can actually create point clouds with your iPhone or iPad with LiDAR built into it in the last couple of versions of the iPhone and the iPad. So you can walk around and get your own point cloud. And there's a tool that I've seen and some of my clients are using called Canvas, canvas.io, I believe, that allows you to go and compile the point cloud. And then one of their services is you send the file in, and for a cost per square foot, which is reasonable, it's not free, but a cost per square foot, somebody in the back end, maybe in India or somewhere, goes and turns it into a CAD model or a BIM model, and they now support ArchiCAD. Now, actually, one of our clients just sent me a file, and I'm going to open it up and see, but other people have used that. So that somebody there is taking those point clouds and, let's say relatively efficiently turning them into model data. So saving time in terms of, like, you might do a 3-story house in an hour of walking around, as opposed to half a day of careful measurement. But Tatarano, you had a couple other questions about stable diffusion and about, do you have an Excel course?
Yeah, so on the Excel side, we have a few different resources for Excel. If you're looking to get the macros to be able to connect things, we have the CXL tool, which is the macro workbook that will allow you to point to a folder and load in the exports from ArchiCAD. So that would be the tool to kind of bridge the two and make it much easier to refresh and relink content. We also have the the C5D training, which goes very deep into Excel and how to set up worksheets and customize worksheets to pull data, summarize it, and work with that information. So so that's another resource on Excel. yeah, really those two are probably the.
Toronto or anyone else wanted to get in touch with you, John, and if they go to ContraBIM.com, is there an email address there?
Yeah, there is actually on the sales page at the bottom, there's a form. So if you have any questions, then just fill it out there and come straight to me and communicate by email from there. So.
Okay. And Toronto asked about, what do you think about Stable Diffusion?
So I'm not familiar with Stable Diffusion. I don't know if you are, Eric.
It sounds like one of those ones that does visualization models based on a text prompt, so AI-based visualization. Is that what it is, Toronto?
Yes, yes, and now it's included in the subscription for the ArchiCAD license. This year at least, it's a plugin for ArchiCAD, and you can make renderings from your models. I
Oh,
use
that's
it
the AI
now
visual.
for conceptual rendering. I just make a morph, and you can tell it what do you want to do, and he
Yeah.
will render it very fast and very good
Yeah. So that's the AI
inside ArchiCAD.
visualizer tool.
Yeah.
Mouthful. Yeah, I downloaded that. I think it was about 20 gigs and realized I don't have the specs. You need a 16 gigabyte graphic card to run that.
Yeah, I
So
just changed my computer just for it.
yeah. So I've heard nothing but good things for the users that actually get it installed. My most common request is, how do I install this? It's not working.
Yeah, it happened to me. I downloaded it and it says put in, there's something on the Mac, Homebrew, which is some processing tool to go munch it around and get it ready for actual use. And Homebrew refused to install. I contacted Graphisoft. They said, here's the reference page. I said, I've already been through that. I said, well, we can't help you anymore. If you can't figure it out yourself, then post it on a forum or just wait till we have a production version, because this is a preview version. I said, okay, I'm too busy to troubleshoot this, but it looks quite amazing. Yeah.
Are you on Apple Silicon or on Intel?
Apple Silicon, yeah.
Yeah, because on Intel it doesn't work. It works only on Apple Silicon and PCs with NVIDIA cards.
Wait, it will work
I
on Apple
managed to
Silicon?
install it very easy.
Wait, it will work on Apple Silicon?
Yeah. I use it on Apple Silicon.
So Toronto, I'll reach out to you. Maybe you can help me install the Homebrew, because it just, for some reason, I got stuck in the installation process. But that sounds great.
Yeah, you need to use the command prompt to install it. Yeah.
I did it through the terminal. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, but maybe there's just one step I missed. Who knows? So, John, this has been
Yeah, I
fantastic.
can help you.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. And I think you've got a great set of resources here in your membership. I was building something a little bit along these lines, and I've certainly created a lot of training courses, but I have gotten sidetracked with my main business now is the Architect Marketing Institute. So I help architects with business development, marketing, and sales. And so the ArchiCAD side, I continue. It's a passion project. I love ArchiCAD users. I love the software. And so I want to bring people like you in front of ArchiCAD users. And you've got much more focus on developing a great resource than I have at the moment. So that's great. You're doing it with, I guess, that the SB architect, whatever his name is, as well as Francois.
Yeah. We have other collaborators in the works for some upcoming courses that are going to be a lot of fun to put together as well. So something excited about the year, because there's a lot going on and a lot of new stuff coming.
Well, if there's any way that I can help you, and possibly like just putting the Arc 5D materials in there, if you feel that they would complement stuff, we should talk, because I think you're doing great stuff.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you having me on, and thanks everyone for asking good questions today. And yeah, if you want to get in contact with me, then yeah, this is a good way. This is one of the easiest forms. Just go to the specials page, and then there's a form at the bottom. Happy to make a connection and yeah, learn what people are doing. So.
Okay. All right. Well, any last questions or comments? Okay, there's some comments. Have you, John, attempted ODBC connections from ArchiCAD to MS Access or other retail database apps in recent times?
I have played around a little bit with it. It's actually one of my kind of big objectives this year is, reformatting and resetting up how I'm managing the ArchiCAD database for the template. So I'll say no, I haven't, officially connected anything there. I've also been looking into the along a similar lines using the Excel data modeling uh, side of the software, which is not used by a lot of users, but is something that's really powerful with the data model and Power Query and Power Pivots. So that's another way to kind of tap in. But yeah, I haven't gotten into Access yet, but something that's been on my radar.
So Mark, you should talk to John. I mean, obviously he hasn't done stuff in this area now, but you give him a good reason to work on it. Like if you have a project that could benefit from it, I bet you John could figure it out for you, consult with you. Gerald Teacher, ArchiCAD has changed your MEP format somewhat. Is your MEP course up to date?
So the MEP course, we recorded a few versions back. I have not re-recorded for the new tools. I've been working on some training videos to really compare the difference between version 26 and prior to version 27. That's stuff that'll be on the membership site as well as on my YouTube channel. I haven't published those just yet, but it's been one of those things I've been hoping that they put out an update to include some of the new features like the scheduling and some fixes to the connections. But yeah, I think it's probably due time for me to put out those videos anyway. But yeah, no, the full MEP course is really more on the prior system. The new MEP tools we've updated in the template, but not haven't done a full-blown training course on it just yet. But something that I'll be putting out, probably free content on YouTube first before doing any sort of expanded MEP training on the 27 and newer.
So Tobin asks, sorry, what was the name of the AI rendering software? It is Stable, like when something doesn't fall over, Stable Diffusion, like things spreading slowly out in space, Stable Diffusion. And it's part of ArchiCAD, it's available now as part of ArchiCAD 27. I mean, it's an independent tool, but basically ArchiCAD is linking into it. And so you have a conceptual model, which is relatively simple, but has shapes and forms, and it will skin it. It will make it look like it has a lot of detail in it. And you can give it prompts saying, make it more woody, or make it more chrome and glass, or make it more this style or that style. And then there are controls like, how closely do you want it to follow the shape that I drew, or how much freedom do you want it to be? And, it's done some great things. We at the Architect Marketing Institute are investigating, cutting edge tools for all sorts of things for marketing purposes. And this is something that, as ArchiCAD users can differentiate yourself, because it may be that ArchiCAD is one of the best tools to not just create an AI version of a skyscraper or a house on a beach, but one that actually has the shape and form that your client needs. So it's not intended to give you final designs, but some of our people have run through multiple iterations of design concepts. And you can just imagine that if you just said, well, make it this way, and 30 seconds later, it made it that way. Now that's getting more like what we want. It gives you feeling. All right, so Tom Palmer says, you need M1 chip for Macs. I guess you're talking about for installing it. I have an M2 chip. I have the MacBook Pro from March of last year, so I assume that should be good enough. Andy Bonder says, maybe if you can get the AI rendering tool working, we could have a next session. I'm happy to do that. I'd love to get it working. So, and maybe get somebody else who knows how to really drive the thing, and I can be the person in the passenger seat who says, look over there. All right, Eric Reinhardt, thanks for interesting demonstration, John. Very cool stuff. All right, so John, great stuff. I hope you get good inquiries and sales from this, and I think all of you should know what resources John has available to help you use ArchiCAD more successfully. So
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I had fun.
yeah, good stuff. All right, so if you have any questions for me, send it to support@bobrow.com, and I'll be happy to answer you or direct you, where I can. And look forward to seeing you next month on ArchiCAD User. I don't have it specifically planned, but we'll make it interesting. And what else? If you are interested in just a weekly Q&A, get help from an expert, I'm going to be stepping onto my ArchiCAD coaching program in a few minutes, but that's the opportunity for any of you who just say, you know what, I wish I could ask some questions because I have challenges with my project. Check out archicadtraining.com/coaching. You can join the coaching program. And if you do buy my course, then it's included. But buy John's course. It's good. All right.
Thanks, Eric.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.